How do I enjoy or appreciate art house cinema? Maybe you can call it experimental cinema, indie cinema, challenging cinema, whatever it is. First, I'm going to preface this by saying that when I mean art house cinema, it's shorthand for any kind of non-conventional cinema that maybe eludes our understanding in the moment, and we kind of throw it in that category. In its own sense, the term is contentious and doesn't really mean that much, but for this video, I'm going to use it as shorthand. So first, I'm going to talk about like what normally do people mean, or why do people say they don't like art house cinema? I think there are two main reasons. I think number one is they find it boring, and number two, they find that they have a difficult time understanding what's happening, and because of that, it gets translated to not enjoying the experience. I'm gonna talk about what I think the reason for this is, and it's gonna be a bit it's like my opinion of sorts, and it's may not necessarily be true, but it's how I understand things. And it might be a bit insulting maybe to people who teach English or storytelling, but this is what I think. I think it's very important to talk about. So the reason why I think people have a hard time experiencing films that are not necessarily conventional in terms of its form, I think a lot of the problem comes in that we have been so drilled into by English teachers and just teachers in general about how to appreciate and understand story in a way that is destructive and wholly restrictive. Because what we are taught when we engage in storytelling is that we are put into this frame of mind where we have to reach this goal, which is theme and what the story is trying to say, what the author is trying to say. It's how we're structured, and how we taught. We got tested on these things where they give us a line and they say, so what does the author mean by this, or what are the themes that they're trying to engage with? I think that's just, and we learn these weird things like 3-act structures, 4-act structures, that they're all just very restrictive, because it makes us feel like there's only one way to really appreciate or understand something, and if we don't get it through that form of method of understanding, we must be insufficient. And I think that makes people feel like they shouldn't anymore try, or they're stupid, and it's very harmful, I think. I talked in my last video about different ways to appreciate movies, and this is like an extension of it, because the idea of not being able to understand an art house cinema film is very common, and I hear it a lot, and I think I want to talk about it a little bit. So the problem, I think, is because we are taught, again, so when we read a piece of poetry or literature, what we have is first layer is the layer of words, and we're taught to analyze the relationship between the words. The first layer of emergence is character and events. So the first thing we note is that there are certain events being depicted and there are characters. What we're taught to be able to extrapolate from that is plot. So characters and events, and then here is overall plot. A lot of the things we're taught in school is with the top two layers, plot and theme and messaging. So first, when we go to plot, we're taught that what's important is to understand 3-act structure, 4-act structure, rising action, climax, turning points, things like this. And we're drilled to it. We're learning all of this constantly, and we're taught this is how we should appreciate things. If we don't understand a story or a piece of literature through this lens, then we don't understand it at all, or at least we don't understand it well enough to do well in an exam about it. So it's very alienating, because there are many other ways to appreciate stories. So I'll give an example of this, right? Or why I think it's difficult with film, because what happens is when we engage with any form of storytelling, we end up kind of putting that frame of mind, that way of thinking to the test. We put the piece of art into the test of that linear way of understanding stories. So for example, the thing is, film is very different, because film is comprised of image and sound, but not just image and sound, but it's about the relationship between image and sound as it's constrained by time. And time is a function of editing, or editing. Editing and time are very interrelated, because we have different shots that are edited together to give a sense of time. So it's image, sounds, and time. So if we watch a film through the lens of how we're taught to read literature, we take image, sound, time, and we try to map out this structure. We think, okay, what are the characters? What are the events happening? What is the plot? How is it structured? And next is, what does it mean? What is the themes, and what is the overall message of the author or the director or the filmmakers? And we have this one way of looking at things, and we throw films into that kind of unidirectional thing. And if it doesn't fit very well, or it's very difficult to kind of push it through, we end up not enjoying the experience because we think we don't understand or something. It's very problematic, because I think a lot of the beautiful parts about film has nothing to do with that structure. a lot of it has to do with the direct sense of pure feeling. It's about how the relationship between image and sound, as constrained by time, makes you feel. So it's about an internal feeling that is evoked, as well as the degree to which we are able to empathize with what's going on the screen. So empathy and inner feeling and empathy, they're tied together. And sometimes, and the thing is, that is already in its own sense what is beautiful about the experience of watching film. It has nothing to do with plot. It's about our capacity to empathize with the characters or whatever situations or frames or images in a way that is deep and resonant and evoking of, just strong feelings and emotion. That's the most beautiful parts of film, is when it makes us feel very strongly. So the framework that can sometimes happen in a film is that there is image, sound, the relationship between the two, as constrained by time, and the next layers immediately goes to feeling, personal feeling, and personal feeling is its own end. Sometimes a whole scene is complete. It's a closed circuit already if it makes us feel strongly. There is no need to extrapolate 3-act plot structures or themes. That's not important. We should be already satisfied with the idea that we felt strongly about something, and because film can be looked at as another form of expanding our capacity to be empathetic with other people and with situations, and that is something that is not anymore put into consideration when we think in the very single-minded way that we're taught to by looking at the class in school. Like, whenever we read something, we're never taught in class, like, how does it make you feel, or what were the emotions stirred inside you, or it's always about what the author thought or what the message is supposed to be, and it ruins a lot of the beauty in storytelling, I think. So I'll give you an example of an image. So for example, you're watching a movie, and the first scene is a woman, and she's all alone in a room, and she's in the middle of the room. She's packing her bags very slowly. She's walking around the frame, looking through her things and trying to fit it into one luggage, one bag. And if you are thinking of it in the perspective of how we're trained to think of storytelling, you look at scenes as a means towards an extraction of information, like in sort of plot and theme. So what I mean by that is you look at the image and you think, okay, check box number 1. Okay, now I know that she is someone who is in a room and she's packing her things. She looks a little sad. And you're done thinking. And then you're there kind of watching, you're thinking, well, when is the next piece of information going to be conveyed to me? Because this scene has been going on for 2-3 minutes, Why do I have to watch her for so long? I already know what's going on in the plot. I already know what's going on. Why do I have to keep watching her? Now I'm getting bored. That is a mistake because sometimes when a scene like that is being portrayed, the goal of the scene is not in order to convey plot anymore. It's in order to convey emotion of character direct to you. So you're supposed to be able to open yourself up and watch and be empathetic with a character in a way that makes you either you feel like you're in the room with the character, or you feel like you are the character yourself. Maybe you're watching this woman thinking, she's all alone. I'm feeling a bit lonely. She seems very sad. She looks like she's going to say goodbye to this room. I wonder what it means to her. Oh, I remember when I was going to college for the first time, I had to pack my bags and I had to leave to fly away, and I remember choosing things in my room, and I wonder where she's going. It must be somewhere she feels like she's not coming back to that room for a while, so she must be very emotional about it. I wonder where she's going. Maybe she's never coming back. And you're there and you're looking at the image and you start kind of wandering your eyes around and looking at the details. Not only do you notice the things she puts in her bag, but you notice the things she leaves behind. Maybe she leaves behind a family photograph. And you think, I wonder, what is that? She left a family photograph. I guess maybe her family's part of what she wants to leave behind and not think about so much. So what happens is, the frame is complete on its own, and it's not just about looking at images as it's related to plot or theme. Sometimes it's really just about empathizing and being there and feeling lonely. If 2 minutes of watching someone pack all alone makes you feel lonely, that's enough. We shouldn't look for more. We shouldn't try to figure out what plot or theme. We shouldn't have those constructs in our head. We should allow ourselves to be in the room with her and to feel how she feels. And that is how we appreciate things like that. It gets extended beyond film into day-to-day life. It's a way of looking at things. It's about watching. It's about exhibiting empathy. It's about training ourselves to be empathetic and to garner emotion. These are things that films can train us to do. So, and it's not necessarily, you really don't have to think of it as training ourselves to be empathetic, but it's one of the ways that we can kind of treat film as a way to learn more about the experiences of things around us and people around us who are different from us. And through seeing and doing our best to be vulnerable to their experience, perhaps learning more about how other people in the world think and learn. And maybe when we leave the cinema, that sense of empathy can be expressed to other people. And that can be done with any kind of cinema. So, and so for example, so again, like, that has nothing to do with 3 acts or 4 act structures. Again, feeling in itself is its own end, and we should allow ourselves to feel. Because a lot of the time when we think of plot, think of theme, it's a lot of intellectualizing. But in the process of intellectualizing a film through its, like, putting it through these boxes, we end up not feeling anymore. And so if you ask me, how do we appreciate art house cinema, you allow yourself to feel. So I'm going to give you 3 tips. Number 1 is to drop all expectations, especially with form. Maybe we don't want to expect to, try to not think about, like, pacing, try not to think about character development or 3 acts or 4 acts. Throw all of that out of sight. Try not to expect pure resolutions. Try not to even expect very clear themes. Just try your best not to think. So how would you drop expectations? Maybe one way is to not read about a movie before watching it. Don't watch a trailer. Sometimes a recommendation from a friend is enough. Just, if your friend recommends you to see a movie, don't read about it and just watch it. And if you just watch it, you won't have all these expectations. Maybe don't look at its Rotten Tomatoes score. Don't do any of that. Maybe just, take recommendations as they come and try not to be too influenced. Because once you see something, for example, if I learn that a movie has a 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, I'm expecting some standard of quality that, what does it mean to have good quality? We don't think too much. That is a problem in cinema. Too much thinking obstructs feeling. So that's what number 2 is. The number 1 is drop expectations. Number 2 is don't think too much. Don't think about what the images or what the director, what the authors are trying to say. And if you're confused, it's okay to be confused. Because unfortunately, sometimes if you feel confused in a movie, it's because the director or the filmmakers want you to be confused. Or maybe the characters or what you're watching are confused, and it's okay to be confused. If at the end of the film you're still confused, you can maybe try to help yourself by looking up the plot so you can piece together elements, or maybe just give yourself time. It's okay to leave a movie confused. And if you still feel confused after some time, you can watch the movie again, and you'll have more information now because you know where it's going to go, and maybe you'll have a better time understanding the things that you weren't able to kind of fully comprehend. And finally, number 3 is allow yourself to be just vulnerable. Allow yourself to stretch your sense of empathy to the characters in a way that, doesn't make it, just allow yourself to feel. You have to go into a movie and make sure that you're not resisting feeling. Because I feel like it's very common sometimes to watch a movie and be very consciously resistant to maybe sentiment, or very consciously resistant to maybe you're watching a horror movie and you're trying to not be scared or whatever. Just if you want to enjoy or appreciate something, lose yourself into the film, lose yourself into the image and sound, lose yourself into the characters, and just allow yourself to feel and to empathize. And I guarantee that if you do any of this stuff, you will be able to enjoy any experience with film, art house or not. And if any situation you feel bored, maybe some scene is taking too long, I would recommend that if you're feeling bored sometime in a scene, try to just look around the frame. Often if a scene or a shot is going on for a very long time, it's because it wants you to either be more immersed in the image, and also, just if you find yourself being bored, try to look around the frame and look at other things that could interest you. Maybe you noticed maybe you noticed something in the background of the room, or you noticed some picture in the background, or maybe you notice that there's another couple in the background that is engaging in activity that maybe you didn't notice the first time. So sometimes if it's taking too long, that means you're just looking at the wrong place, and maybe look around the frame or appreciate the frame or whatever. Just there are many ways to do this, but again, I think it takes dropping expectations, not thinking so much, and just allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And I think if you try to do this stuff regularly, you'll get used to allowing yourself to be open to cinema and imagery, and you will enjoy anything you watch.